The rise and fall of young adult dystopian adaptation franchises. With the successes of Harry Potter, Twilight and The Hunger Games, later came handfuls of failures that dreamed of succeeding with their predecessors. 2014, the year of young adult dystopian franchises. The year is 2014. The Oscars release a selfie of the world's biggest movie stars. Justin Bieber's mugshot surfaces. Emma Watson speaks at the United Nations for gender equality. The Fault in Our Stars popularizes the infinity sign. Just about everything seems right in the world. As someone who lived and breathed the culture of 2014, everything in the world of pop culture just seemed easy. There is a bittersweet existence in knowing that decades have passed since the beginning of Harry Potter. With 8 films from 2001 to 2011 earning $7.7 billion US from the box office, or the next successful franchise, Twilight, with 5 films from 2008 to 2012 earning $3.3 billion US from the box office. Both young adult franchises were the kickstart to a rapid incline of young adult dystopian films centered around political impact, connections, love and loss. Ultimately, the success of pop culture, income, and fan bases from the Harry Potter and Twilight franchises became the reason as to why studios reached out to the most popular young adult novels in order to try and gain that same impact for more films.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
So much so that the number of franchises that were successful compared to the ones that failed before their sequel is rather devastating. At the same time, some films give off the apparent reason as to why they failed, with lousy acting, even poorer attention to storyline adaptation, timing, and in cases simply didn't work for audiences. What do all these films have in common? A dystopian universe of destruction claiming one person is less valuable than another.
I mean, I don't know, you might not like my dog, or you want to hit me over the head with a rock or something.
Causing a rampage of political action to reverse the damage. Along with that, love, relationships, death, and suffering. And with all of that, they are but young adult characters in a universe that is damaging and close enough to home to feel realistic to our current reality.
Let's go!
In a way, these young adult dystopian films are hypnotizing of the true effect of hitting a nerve within us that feels like a universe of separated factions dictating our personalities that could truly exist. The young adult dystopian adaptation films that failed. When looking at successes to failures, you might notice that casting, storytelling, and overall aesthetic are essentially part of whether the film will be successful. And many people, including myself, might say that some of these films on the list of failures were relatively successful in our eyes, and it was a grave disservice to know that we will never know how our favorite characters' lives will ultimately end. I'm sure recalling some of these titles might unearth that part in some of your hearts that wished they had gotten a sequel to their favorite character's story. No! As this certainly occurred within myself. But sadly, studios do not care about the cut-off storyline or cliffhanger, but rather the numbers. Yes, money, the ultimate tell-on whether a film will get a sequel or be erased from history and labelled with failed. With the successes came the downfall of many adaptations that ended on a note requiring more explanation but never received a sequel, such as 2007's The Golden Compass, budget $180 million US, grossed worldwide $370 million US. 2011's I Am Number 4, budget $60 million, grossed worldwide $150 million. 2013's Mortal Instruments City of Bones, budget $60 million, grossed worldwide $95 million. 2013's The Host, budget $40 million, grossed worldwide $63 million. 2013's Ender's Game, budget $110 million, grossed worldwide $125 million. 2014's The Giver, budget 25 million, gross worldwide 66 million. 2014's Vampire Academy, budget 30 million, gross worldwide 15 million. 2016's The Fifth Wave, budget 38 million, gross worldwide 109 million. 2018's The Darkest Minds, budget 34 million, gross worldwide 41 million. 2018's Mortal Engines, budget 100 million, gross worldwide 83 million. 2019's Alita Battle Angel, budget 170 million, gross worldwide 405 million.
Alita, run!
Looking at this list, you might be thinking that some had quite a success in revenue, so why was there no sequel? Apart from Alita Battle Angel, whose possibility of a sequel is still being determined, these films simply did not work. Whether that had been because of an actor's scheduling, a director losing interest, a fan's displeasure with adapting their favorite novels, or the wrong timing of the release, some minor detail or incorrect timing can ruin the entire franchise.
She's threatening the natural order of things.
For Alita Battle Angel, most people I had spoken to never even heard of the film before I recommended it to them, and the people who already knew of it said they were displeased with it. In my opinion, I loved it, but I adored most of the films on the list, so my opinion might be trash in your eyes. Most of the films on this list had some of the world's biggest actors and actresses, such as Nicole Kidman, Eva Green, Teresa Palmer, Lily Collins, Saoirse Ronan, Jeff Bridges, Meryl Streep, and so many more. So the choice of actors could have been the cause, but more than likely, it always falls to the fans of the novels who cherish the story and will raise hell if it is tampered with or not completed correctly.
I'm not gonna let anyone hurt you.
Percy Jackson, a semi-success that met failure. 20th Century Fox gained the rights to Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson novels and made 2010's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, starring Logan Lerman, Brandon T. Jackson, and Alexandra Daddario. As with most adaptations, fans of the novels were greatly disappointed by the recreation, but the love for the youthful, good-looking cast and the heartthrob that is Logan Lerman was the saving grace of the franchise. This pop culture love earned a sequel in 2013 with Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters with the same cast, but with previous concerns now outbalancing the love for the cast. The final venture to create the third installment, Percy Jackson, The Titan's Curse, was cancelled. Fans have expressed their discontent with the portrayal of their beloved story, but are open to recreation with more attention to the novels. This has been surfacing around, even with the idea of a TV limited series, but the finalization is all up in the air. In my opinion, with such a strong storyline coming from the novels and the massive fan base made from the first installments, along with the novel fans, I would not be surprised if a studio took it into consideration.
It's a powerful weapon.
This is a pen.
2010's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, budget $95 million, gross worldwide $226 million. 2013's Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters, budget $90 million, gross worldwide $199 million. Divergent, more successful than Percy Jackson, yet still failed. After the success of the Twilight franchise, Lionsgate acquired Summit Entertainment and made 2014's Divergent, starring Shailene Woodley, Theo James, Kate Winslet, Miles Teller, and Ansel Elgort. As with most young adult dystopian films,
The only way our society can survive is for each of you to claim your rightful place.
separating groups of individuals is a big hit, as was seen with the Hunger Games and the division into 12 districts. In Divergent, people are separated by their personality into 5 different factions: abnegation, selfless; erudite, intellectual; dauntless, brave; candor, honest; and amity, peaceful.
I don't want to be just one thing.
Speaking for myself, the first film was a major success and had me visiting the movie theater numerous times in the same week just to experience the magic all over again. With this success, the sequel, Insurgent, came in 2015 along with the same popular cast. The cast, in particular, was 2014's biggest stars, with films such as The Fault in Our Stars, The Spectacular Now, Men, Women and Children, and Whiplash. When you think of 2014, you think of Shailene Woodley, Ansel Elgort, and Miles Teller. That's just the way it is. With a semi-success from the second installment came 2016's Allegiant, which would mark the end of the franchise with its failure to keep audiences entertained. In all honesty, the magic from the first film was no longer there, as pop culture between the first film had already shifted when 2016 arrived. Using the Hunger Games as a reference, that franchise knew how to stick to its roots, knowing that the magic from the first film was the successor in gaining fans. For Allegiant, the magic that was previously made was thrown out the window, and we were placed into an entirely new world, never considering the love we had for the separation into factions. The franchise was planned to make 4 films, but when director Robert Schwentke chose not to return so that he could get a break from back-to-back filming, the entire thing was disregarded. 2014's Divergent, budget 85 million, grossed worldwide 288 million. 2015's Insurgent, budget 110 million, grossed worldwide 297 million. 2016's Allegiant, budget 110 million, grossed worldwide 179 million. Maze Runner, successful but not great. After the failure of Percy Jackson, 20th Century Fox took on the adventure for another young adult dystopian adaptation with 2014's The Maze Runner, starring Dylan O'Brien, Thomas Brody Sangster, and Kaya Scodelario. Throughout the franchise, reviewers were mixed about their feelings, with most of the young adult audience in love with the youthful, good-looking cast once again. The first film's budget was a mere 38 million and grossed around 348 million worldwide. However, as with other franchises, each new installment earned less than the one before.
I think it's time we find out what we're really up against.
As a fan of this franchise myself, there are minor details I would have liked to have been different, but overall, this still stands as a strong series. In 2015 came Maze Runner: The SCORCH Trials, which successfully earned another film, but with Dylan O'Brien's near-death injury. The third installment would come 3 years later in 2018 with Maze Runner: The Death Cure. With the final film ending in 2018, this would prove Maze Runner to be the last successful young adult dystopian adaptation franchise to date. 2014's The Maze Runner, budget 34 million, gross worldwide 348 million. 2015's Maze Runner: The SCORCH Trials, budget 61 million, gross worldwide 312 million. 2018's Maze Runner: The Death Cure, budget 62 million, gross worldwide 288 million. The Hunger Games: The Ultimate Success. In 2012, Lionsgate gained the rights to Susan Collins' The Hunger Games, starring Jennifer Lawrence, Stanley Tucci, Josh Hutcherson, Liam Hemsworth, and Elizabeth Banks. This franchise would become the biggest success since the first 2 successors, Harry Potter and Twilight. In 2013 came The Hunger Games: Catching Fire, most of which is claimed to have been fans' favorite installment of the 4 films. In 2014, The Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 1, the one being fans' least favorite.
Oh shit.
And finishing in 2015 with The Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 2. The strength of this franchise is incomparable to other young adult dystopian adaptations simply because of the strong connection between novel and film. With Lawrence's insane acting abilities, matched with the powerful storyline that perfectly syncs with the current events, success was bound to happen. Unfortunately, The Hunger Games would also be the cutoff for future successes, but only time will tell if this will hold true. After the success of Jennifer Lawrence as his Cold Stone Katniss Everdeen, studios produced young adult dystopian adaptations one after another, trying to get the magic that so many young adults fell for. Although, as you know by now, that has not happened.
If you end all of this, all those deaths, they mean something.
2012's The Hunger Games, budget 78 million, gross worldwide 694 million. 2013's The Hunger Games: Catching Fire, budget 130 million, gross worldwide 865 million. 2014's The Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 1, budget 125 million, gross worldwide 755 million. 2015's The Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 2, budget 160 million, grossed worldwide 658 million. Is there a future for young adult dystopian franchises? With the success of the previous films mentioned, studios began to create anything they thought would be comparable or better than the previous successes, but with the heavy amount of failures as opposed to the successes,
You are the only one.
the amount of young adult dystopian fiction adaptations diminished into almost nothing. Nowadays, studios are choosing to create young adult films targeting important meanings of values such as gay relationships, movements such as Black Lives Matter, or the realism of cyberbullying.
Don't ever let nobody make you be quiet.
Although just recently a young adult dystopian adaptation was released, Chaos Walking, starring Tom Holland, Daisy Ridley and Mads Mikkelsen, unfortunately the probability of a sequel has been deemed unlikely, and when I tell you my soul is crushed, my soul is crushed. It is almost a disservice to produce a film that requires a sequel for more explanation and yet never receives one. All of these cliffhangers that we will never know the end to, and at this point it is insanely frustrating that the volume of incomplete narratives, more obvious than not, I think it is clear that the studios are aware that young adult dystopian adaptations can still be successful. Still, it takes correct timing, novel interpretation, casting, and dedication to the fans and their opinions. Fans heavily support these franchises, so if a studio wishes for a successful sequel, you must learn to pay attention to what the fans want.
Snake.
Look to Harry Potter, Twilight, The Hunger Games, all franchises with massive fan bases that still to this day write fanfictions, cosplay, and live and breathe the stories. With a fan base, the chances of your art being successful are raised to the extent of their dedication. In all, do not underestimate the young girl with a Pinterest board and the talent to conjure up some fan fiction. These girls, boys, and non-binaries are the support system of franchises, and if we wish for future young adult dystopian franchises to arise again, you must get some fans in on it. And if there is anything I know about being on social media, is that fans are ready and looking for another franchise to fall in love with.